Seeker. Written by Susanna Thompson. Performed by Heather Firth. Chapter 2. I see him again when I am 9 years old. My parents have left us with my grandmother while they are celebrating their anniversary over a long weekend. Justin is happily playing with Dad's old Hot Wheels cars on the living room floor, while I watch Wheel of Fortune with Grandma. I absently twirl a strand of my hair around my finger as I try to solve the puzzle on the TV screen. The black patch is something that nobody in my family talks about anymore. It spooks them, but they've had no choice but to settle into an uneasy acceptance of it. Mom did eventually try cutting it out after it failed to fade or even grow out. Although my hair grew longer, the dark patch remained on the exact same spot on my head. In desperation one day, Mom took the scissors to it and hurriedly threw it in the trash. "There," she said in relief. "It's gone." Dad came running into my room the next morning when he heard Mom shrieking in horror. Her hand shook as she pointed at my head in response to his panicked query about what was wrong. They both stood staring at my hair with fearful eyes until I began to whimper in fear at seeing them so scared. "It's okay," Dad soothed as he moved to hug me. "You're okay." "Tim," Mom choked. "It's okay," he repeated firmly. "She's a perfectly healthy kid." "But how—" "It's not hurting her," he exclaimed. "Just leave it alone." I saw it in the mirror when I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth. The black patch was in my hair like it had never been cut out. The one that Mom had cut out yesterday was still in the trash can beside the toilet, but a new one had grown into my hair overnight. The blonde hair beneath it had yet to regrow, and that portion of my hair looked like it had been snipped off right below the dark patch. Mom then tried to lighten it chemically with hair color, but it had no effect on the black patch. After that failed, she attempted to hide it by coloring the rest of my hair black. But it all washed right out when she rinsed my hair after the allotted time for the color to set. She tried again with another dye in case that one had been defective, but the same thing happened. Her expression was now grim rather than horrified. "Leave it alone," Dad urged again when she complained to him about it. She had no choice but to comply since she had been unable to get rid of it. When people remarked on it, she just told them that I had wanted to do something unique and different with my hair. Unlike my parents, I liked the dark patch in my hair. Bullies made fun of me for it, but I thought it was cool. I'd also discovered that it was literally cool. We'd been sitting out in the sun watching Justin's t-ball game when I had found a cool spot as I touched my hot head. It was right there where the dark patch was. Knowing that the patch upset my parents, I didn't mention this new discovery to them. Their fear has faded over the years since the mysterious patch in my hair has had no effect on the rest of me. I'm a completely normal kid in every other way. Right now, I laugh in delight when Grandma's guess about the words in the puzzle turns out to be correct. "You should go on the show," I tell her, excited about the possibility of seeing my grandma on TV. "Too much trouble for these old bones," she says. "Can't be flying out to California. Not with this arthritis." I'm not sure what arthritis is, but it seems to prevent her from doing all kinds of fun things, like riding a bike and running around in the park. She walks slowly and has to sit down a lot. During this visit to her house, she seems to be even more tired than usual. A few minutes after our talk, I look over at her and see that she has fallen asleep. My little brother asks for juice, and I tell him that I'll get it for him. When I walk into the kitchen, I see the young man that I had seen one day at the zoo and never forgotten. My memory of him had been somewhat hazy, though. Seeing him before me again sharpens the details that had faded over time. His black eyes are still as impenetrable to scrutiny as complete darkness is to sight. They stare unblinkingly at my hair. My own eyes become transfixed by the sheen of his smooth black hair. I want to touch it and find out if it feels as silky as it looks. I am taller than the last time I saw him, but he still has to bend down so that I can reach his head as I lift up my hand to touch his hair. It is just as cool and silky as I had imagined, and I sigh at the luxurious feel of it. He straightens up and watches me with his expressionless eyes. I gaze at them searchingly, trying to glimpse the secrets hidden within them. The movement of his hand distracts me. As he raises his hand, my eyes travel over the length of his arm and notice a patch of color on his pale skin. It looks rosier and healthier than the rest of his pasty skin. He lightly runs his finger over the small hoop in my left ear. I got my ears pierced, I tell him. I was too little for earrings when you saw me before. He looks exactly the same as he did when I saw him at the zoo. He's even dressed the same as he was then, in black jeans and a black t-shirt. The boots he is wearing are also black. Is black your favorite color? I ask him. Mine is purple. I lift one foot to draw attention to my purple tennis shoes. I have a purple swimsuit, too. Do you like to go swimming? Mila? Grandma calls out before she enters the kitchen. Who are you talking to? She halts behind me, and I turn to see her staring at the young man. I trail off as I realize that I don't know his name. What's your name? I turn back and ask him. Leave her alone, Grandma demands in an anxious, panicked voice. He's not a stranger, I reassure her, because she's always warning me to stay away from strangers. I know him. Grandma now looks horrified when I glance back at her. Take me instead, she pleads. She's just a child. You are the one I came for, he says in a dry, sandpapery voice that sounds like he's dying of thirst. Go give your brother his juice, Grandma urges me. I obediently take the juice box out of the refrigerator after walking past the young man. On the return trip, I try to walk through him, but I come up against a solid body. Why can't I walk through you? I ask in disappointment. Justin suddenly comes running into the kitchen and reaches effortlessly through the young man to grab the juice box out of my hand. It's not fair, I complain. Go back to the living room, kids, Grandma says in a tremulous voice. Justin hands the juice box back to me. Fix it. I puncture the container with the straw so that he can drink it. He takes a sip and rushes out of the kitchen with it. Mila, go. Grandma gasps, looking like she's about to collapse. Grandma! I hurry around the young man to help her over to a chair. She sits down heavily, clearly exhausted. Don't take me now, she pleads in a weak voice. They'll be alone. I'm not taking you anywhere, he rasps. With another inscrutable look at me, he turns and walks through the closed back door, disappearing into the darkness outside. After drinking the juice box I place in front of her, Grandma feels better. She's able to help Justin into his pajamas and tuck him into bed. Who is he? I ask her later as I'm getting ready for bed too. The man in the kitchen. You don't know? Grandma questions me. You said you knew him. I then explain about seeing him at the zoo when I was little. She listens thoughtfully without getting upset about it like my parents did. Her eyes spark with understanding when I mention how he touched my hair. "That's where it came from," she murmurs. "But he didn't harm you." "What does harm mean?" I ask. "Hurt," she tells me. "It means hurt." "No, he didn't harm me," I confirm, proud of saying the new word I had learned, but not thinking of the implications of her statement. "His touch is—" She trails off, and I recognize the expression adults have when they don't want kids to know something. "What?" I press. "His touch is what?" "You're special," she says. "He touched you, but you didn't—" She again frustrates me by not finishing her sentence. "You're okay," she adds. "And I'll be okay. He didn't touch me." I'm very confused as she tells me goodnight and leaves the room. I want to know what she was talking about and who the man is. She seemed to know, but she didn't answer my questions. I'm still curious about it the next morning, and I hope that she will tell me. I see that the refrigerator door is open, and that there is a carton of eggs on the floor when I walk into the kitchen. Some of the eggs are broken and splattered on the floor. Justin is sitting at the kitchen table with a juice box in one hand and a straw in the other. He holds out both to me. "Fix it. You made a mess," I scold him as I help him with the juice box. "Where's Grandma?" "Sleeping," he answers and sips his juice. I step carefully around the slimy mess and shut the refrigerator door. "Why didn't you wake her up?" "Can't," he says, and demands Pop-Tarts. "Wait," I tell him and go to check on Grandma. She is lying stiff and motionless on her bed, and her skin doesn't look right. "Grandma?" I call out loudly, but she doesn't respond. I think about trying to shake her awake, but I'm reluctant to touch her for some reason. My mind searches for another option. And I remember that I'm supposed to call 911 in an emergency. Justin barges in, insisting on his Pop-Tarts while I'm talking to the operator. I shush him and finish answering the lady's questions about Grandma. She tells me to stay on the phone with her while I go downstairs and wait for the ambulance to arrive. I quickly make Justin's Pop-Tarts in the toaster and place them on a plate for him before waiting by the front door for the ambulance. The nice lady on the phone asks if I know how to call my parents. I tell her that I have them on my cell phone, and she says to call them after I let the paramedics into the house. I call Mom while the paramedics are in Grandma's room. She asks to talk to them, and they meet me in the hallway as I'm walking to Grandma's room. One of them takes the phone from me, and the other one ushers me back downstairs. "Did you wake her up?" I ask. His gaze shifts away from me and fixes on Justin playing with the Hot Wheels cars. "Not yet." He looks relieved to see his partner coming down the stairs. "Cops are on their way," his partner says and hands me my phone back. "Your mommy and daddy will be here as soon as they can." "What about Grandma?" I question. "Is she going in the ambulance?" They exchange an uncomfortable look. "Not right now," one of them answers. "I like your hair," the other one tells me. "That's a cool earring, too." "Thanks," I reply, and lift my hands to my ears to indicate that I have two earrings. "Some kids say it looks stupid, but I like having this in my hair." "Kind of a semi-goth look," the other guy notes, but I have no idea what he's saying. They stand around awkwardly and keep looking toward the front windows. Their relief is obvious when they see the police arrive. "They'll stay with you until your parents get here." The paramedics leave and the police officers ask our names. A short time later, they greet a lady at the door. "This is Miss Martin. She'll stay with you until your mommy and daddy come home." We are then left in the care of Miss Martin, who tells me that she's a social worker after I ask if she's a police officer too. I don't know what that is, but I accept her answer without questioning her further about it. She's a warm and friendly person who smiles a lot at us. That's why I immediately notice her guarded expression when some more men arrive. They're not dressed like paramedics, but they've brought a stretcher with them. She speaks quietly to them, then turns to us with a bright smile. "I bet you haven't had breakfast yet. Let's go into the kitchen and I'll make you something to eat." Oh, I remember the mess in the kitchen. I forgot to clean it up. She coaxes Justin to come with her and follows me into the kitchen. "I'll get it," she offers as I grab some paper towels. She crouches down and begins to mop up the broken eggs. "What do you want for breakfast?" "Pop-Tarts," Justin exclaims happily, apparently delighted to eat breakfast again. Miss Martin has to use more paper towels to finish cleaning up the mess, and I drift back into the living room while she's occupied. The men are bringing the stretcher back down, and I can see that there is someone on it, although the person is completely covered with a sheet. "Mila!" Miss Martin gasps as she hurries toward me. I stare at her in shock. Was Grandma murdered? The men wheel the stretcher out of the house, and Miss Martin closes the door behind them. She looks very upset as she turns back to me. "Why would you think that?" I explain about seeing someone covered like that on a TV show my parents were watching. I'd heard the police talking about murder before my parents noticed me there and made me go back to bed. "No," Miss Martin says. "Your grandma wasn't murdered. She was sick and she died. I'm sorry, Mila." "She has arthritis," I inform her, wondering if that's why she died. She walks over and puts her arm around me. "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see that. Your parents wanted to tell you themselves." I go back into the kitchen with her and sit numbly watching Justin munch on his Pop-Tart. Miss Martin asks me what I want to eat, and I shrug. She finds some waffles in the freezer and toasts a couple for me, prompting Justin to declare that he wants waffles too. Our parents arrive before Miss Martin has to deal with feeding us lunch. They were staying at a bed and breakfast inn about 3 hours away from Grandma's house. Justin, still unaware of what happened to Grandma, launches himself into Mom's arms. "Look at my cars, Mommy. Grandma says I can take 2 home, but I have to leave the others for next time." "I'm sorry for your loss," Miss Martin says. "Thank you," Dad replies. "And thank you for taking care of our children." She looks anxious as she takes him aside and speaks quietly to him while Justin chatters away at Mom. Dad glances at me as Miss Martin continues speaking to him. He nods somberly at her and says something to her in reply. We leave Grandma's house shortly after Miss Martin, and Justin is thrilled when we stop at a fast food restaurant for lunch. Most of our meal is eaten in silence until Mom notices my earring. "Where'd you get that?" she asks, pointing at my ear. I look questioningly at her. "That earring," she says. "Where's your other hoop?" I'm still looking at her uncomprehendingly, and she gets up out of her seat and comes over to inspect my left earring. She takes it off and shows it to me. I reach out to feel the intricate black spiderweb design etched into the gold hoop, and I remember the young man touching my earring last night. "Where'd you get this?" Mom demands with a sharp edge to her voice. She's already upset, And I know that mentioning the young man will only upset her more. I don't know, I tell her. It was my regular earring when I went to sleep. She stares at me and then looks down at the earring in her hand. Then she pivots and drops it into her empty sandwich wrapper and crumples it. She's marching determinedly toward the trash can when I react. No! I yell and run after her. Give it back! She ignores me, and I begin to scream and carry on like I'm Justin's age. Dad jumps in to intervene, but she's already tossed it into the trash. It's not fair, I shout. Grandma said he didn't harm me. My rage withers instantly when I see the identical expressions of terror on my parents' faces. Justin breaks the creepy spell we're under. I have to go pee, Mommy. Mom pulls herself together, but her voice breaks a little when she answers him. Mommy will take you to the bathroom. Dad busies himself with cleaning up the rest of the trash from our table. Grandma was old and sick, he tells me. Arthritis, I say. And other problems, he adds. Neither one of my parents ever asks me about what I said in the restaurant. When I am older, I realize that they didn't want to know. Grandma died without telling me what she knew about the man in her kitchen, so it would be a while before I found out who he was. Several days after Grandma died, I discovered that the earring was in my jewelry box. Whether it was the same one that Mom had thrown away or a magical replacement was something that I would never know. I knew better than to let Mom see it again, though, so I hid it in a sock at the back of my sock drawer. I'd often take it out and admire it when I was alone in my room. Unlike my dark patch of hair, the earring was not cool to the touch. Running my finger over the tiny, thin lines on the gold hoop caused my skin to tingle in an oddly pleasant way. Grandma had mentioned the young man's touch, and I wondered about it. Would his hand feel cool on my skin like the patch in my hair, or tingly like the earring? I hadn't thought about him that much after I saw him at the zoo. After his appearance at Grandma's house, though, he began to seep into my thoughts more often.